So today we are discussing a paper on sleep and disorder of consciousness. So, and I will be the one who summarizes this paper quickly. So the paper titled A Systematic Review of Sleep in Patients with Disorders of Consciousness, from Diagnosis to Prognosis. And it was written by Jiahui Pen, Jianhui Wu, Jia Liu, Jianwu Wu, and Fai Wang. Again, sorry for mispronouncing probably all of your names. And they work at the South China Normal University and the Panzhou lab in China. And this review paper was published in Brain Sciences, the journal Brain Sciences, in 2021, so quite recently. And what this paper is about, it's basically summarizes our current knowledge of sleep and specifically EEG patterns of sleep in patients with disorders of consciousness. And so just to quickly talk through a couple of important terms that we are going to use during the discussion. So they were mostly focusing on unresponsive wakefulness syndrome and minimally conscious state. And also there's coma, which is usually kind of the most severe type of disorder of consciousness. Above that, or if you kind of use this kind of visual demonstration, usually unresponsive wakefulness is a bit more like, seems to be higher, or the level of consciousness is a bit more preserved then. And then after that, minimally conscious state, again, it's a more responsive state, but still the behavioral responses are not quite preserved. And of course, there's wakefulness or normal responsiveness. And an interesting concept, or an important issue with these different diagnostic categories, is that it's actually quite difficult to categorize people with traumatic or non-traumatic brain injuries. However, the right diagnosis is quite important because it influences the treatment options and in general the prognosis. And the authors also mentioned, which was quite interesting for me, that with the advances of emergency or critical care, there seems to be an increase of patients with disorders of consciousness. So it is likely becoming even more important. I mean, yeah, it has been important before, but again, because these states are becoming more prevalent, it is very important to find effective states for categorizing or finding the correct diagnosis for these patients. And there are many different strategies to do this. There are methods using, for example, task-based things, or kind of trying to assess the responsiveness of the patients with pain stimuli or other type of stimuli, eye movements, similar things. And then somewhat underused or underutilized aspect is examining the patient's sleep patterns. And so the authors basically give a review of the literature from the last 20 years and discuss several EEG patterns of sleep and their potential use in improving diagnosis for patients. So what are these EEG patterns? Basically, a quite important like just to give you a short summary of what we need to know to understand this paper. So there's this standard way to categorize different sleep stages in people. There are a couple of different manuals, but there are, like in general, the scientific community uses 5 categories. So wakefulness, stage 1 non-REM sleep, stage 2 non-REM sleep, stage 3 non-REM sleep, and REM sleep. And these 5 stages have, of course, somewhat different neural and neurophysiological signatures. So when people are awake, but they close their eyes and they start to fall asleep, their EEG mostly consists of higher frequency patterns in the alpha range, for example. And then as they start to fall asleep, their EEG activity starts to slow down, and theta waves occur, and also some other patterns, which means that the patient or the participant enters the sleep stage 1. Again, progressively, this stage progresses to non-REM sleep stage 2, which is mostly characterized by sleep spindles and K complexes. And so these are quite short bursts of activity. The spindles are kind of like a short burst of higher frequency activity. I think they are in the range of 13 to 16 hertz or around that. And then K complexes seem to be like a quite large wave. And after this, as the sleep progresses to the next stage, delta waves occur. So again, these are even slower frequency activity. And yeah, that signifies stage 3 or N3. And after that, people go to REM sleep, which is from an EEG standpoint, it looks fairly similar to wakefulness. Again, there are theta waves, and also, of course, the importance is the eye movements and the lack of muscle tone. So this is how people are categorizing sleep stages, and these are the important features for categorizing normal or healthy population or their sleep. And seemingly, what the main finding or the main message of the paper is that if a patient seems to have more intact sleep cycle and they show more of these typical sleep patterns, I think most importantly spindles, but also slow wave sleep and REM stage, it seems to mean that the patients have a more like a higher chance for positive outcomes. And basically the authors kind of argue for using sleep staging and sleep assessments as part of the diagnostic process. They also point out a couple of issues. So right now, it is quite difficult to collect data for patients with disorders of consciousness because of, it's a quite difficult process to collect EEG data with good data quality for a long term. Previous studies have used at least 24 hours, but of course it's quite difficult to record this because in a hospital there are many things happening, and also with the fact that patients need to be moved around so they don't get ulcers, and also in just general the nursing activity kind of may disturb so it may disturb the sleep patterns of the patients. There might be some limitations about this, and some, like, one needs to be careful to be conscious about that when interpreting the sleep data of patients. And yeah, in general, I think there is a quite interesting point with how sleep is quite important, and as it seems to be a signifier for positive outcomes for patients with disorder of consciousness. Do you have anything to add to this summary, or anything I missed?
No, I don't think so, but I have just one kind of question to you. So just first of all, yeah, what's the difference between sleep and just unconscious state? That's my question.
So I'm unsure about this, but I think it is most likely the cyclicalness of sleep. So I think people in a coma state, they just have mostly slow wave activity in their brain, or similar to that, and they don't have this kind of change in the EEG pattern, nor in their kind of arousal levels, signifying the sleep-wake cycle. And yeah, in patients with unresponsive wakefulness and with minimally conscious state, there seem to be somewhat irregular, but still there seem to be a sleep-wake cycle during the day. So meaning there's a change in arousal and seemingly brain activity across the day. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the reason why I asked this question is that in this paper, they mentioned some differences between the healthy subject and healthy subject participants, and also subject with disorder of consciousness, right? And I started to feel like maybe there are some different types of sleep due to disorder of consciousness. And if we like start that kind of idea, then it makes me feel, okay, then how I can like distinguish with sleep and also just non-conscious states, just vegetative states, and we can, in a sense, consider that kind of disorder of conscious states as a type of sleep, or other way around, like sleep as in some type of disorder of consciousness or something like that. And I understand this is this is not meaningful in terms of diagnostic and pro-diagnostic perspective, because what they kind of expecting is that how we can care like these subject to like healthy, or how to recover these disorder of consciousness into healthy subject patterns. So I understand this kind of separation does not make sense, but it just I just wonder, so I asked this question.
Yeah, so I think something is what the authors mentioned, and I think it's quite important, is that they kind of shed light on the fact that patients and, most likely anyone in a hospital has quite fragmented sleep. So meaning because of, like I mentioned before, nursing activity, but just also because there's a lot of equipment, and also the light is on, and also, or like different light levels, but definitely not completely dark rooms, of course. And also because, for example, patients don't have the societal like activities to do, so therefore they have time to sleep during the day as well, and that can also influence their night sleep, because they just don't need it, or they don't need as much. So in general, I think it is quite difficult to tell if people with disorders of consciousness have these altered sleep patterns because of either the brain injury, or because their kind of routine is so drastically changed. And it's kind of, a normal response to like sleep fragmentation and the lack of, inability to sleep during the day. So I think it's definitely needs further research and more kind of critical examination of the data. And because I think it may be the case that some patients have a more stereotypically like an altered sleep as like originating from the fact that they have some kind of disorder of consciousness. And also some other patients may have altered sleep because of their condition and then the environment. So yeah, I think it's definitely a interesting question.
Yeah, also another question, not directly kind of related to this paper, but rather more to do with like sleep research itself. So there are some features related to different stages of sleeps, right? And what my question is, what is the the physical mechanism of these features, or is it difficult to find the mechanism, this physical mechanism, these features? Because in this paper, as Aniko says, the spindle can be a good indicator for like a positive outcome. And if we understand like some kind of mechanism produce or cause that spindles one features, then maybe we can say that that mechanism is important for like conscious, or the recovery from disorder of consciousness or something like that. So, but I don't think that in this paper they did not mention anything about the mechanism of any like features. Rather, they just focusing on like in sleep, different sleep stage, there are some different features, and then this feature is or kind of correlated with like recovery, but others not, or something like that. So yeah, that's another question.
So yeah, Ryoshi, if you have anything to add, please do so. But just to quickly tell you what do I know about this, I think, so for example, with spindles, I seem to recall that there are some theories and studies supporting that they may relate to memory consolidation. Yeah, so memory consolidation and learning. But I'm quite unsure if it's completely generalizable. I guess it's like specifically if they occur at a certain part of the brain, it has been connected with learning, I think. Yeah, so I think there are theories about what these different like patterns may signify or contribute to, but I don't think there's a, clear understanding of, okay, yeah, this means that the brain does this function during this time, or at least I don't know of any clear suggestions. Yeah. This is what you meant by physical.
Yes, exactly.
Base.
Yes, yeah.
How about the REM sleep? REM sleep. It is related to the memory or something to cognition. So when we are awake, our brain activated, and when we are in the non-REM sleep stage, how to say, the brain lubricates the memory or perceptive coding or activation, same as the waking stage. So I think the REM sleep stage is related to the memory or cognition.
Yeah, and I think also with slow wave sleep, I think they also mentions, and also there are some, so people say, and there are some theories on that the slow wave activity is actually related to synaptic pruning and kind of like the maintenance of synapses, and again, like brain plasticity. So again, it's I'm sure it is related to learning and memory consideration in some way. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know if yeah, so sleep seems to have a lot of different functions and seems to contribute to a lot of different things, and I think it's hard to say concrete examples that are obviously related to one specific sleep stage or sleep pattern.
Yeah, I think so. In that sense, again, I think in this paper they just focusing on how to detect the disorder of consciousness or the possibility of recovery. Or so I think that's kind of a summary of this paper, what they try to do. So not like looking into detail of what is the mechanism of, let's say, like, or why some people suffer from disorder of consciousness. What is the mechanism of that kind of stuff, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely, I think there will be, or I'm sure we need a lot more studies on this. And there are so many other features of sleep, for example, dreaming, again, which I would be very interested to see if once we are able to identify maybe a signature for dreaming, an EEG signature for dreaming in healthy people, it would be very interesting to test that on patients with disorder of consciousness, because yeah, I mean, obviously it would be quite interesting to see if they have some kind of dreaming experience. But yeah, I guess it's this paper showcases that due to the difficulty of collecting such data and also just the current stage of science, we don't know these details, and it's still, yeah, we need more progress and we need more research on this.
Yeah, as Aniko mentioned, I was also interested in like dreams in patient with disorder of consciousness. So I just wonder whether they have a dream or not. And maybe some patients have dream, and such kind of imply that these patients can be or recover from disorder of consciousness. On the other hand, the patients who do not have a dream will be less likely to recover from disorder of consciousness or something like that. So yeah, that's a kind of I just curious about that. I think maybe we can go to the discussion part. So if you have any questions, you can just ask. So Rich, maybe you unmuted, so you have some question, right? You can go first.
Okay, thank you. So related to the Yota's comment and question, and I think there are researches examine the dream or sleep neural data of the conscious disorder patients, and also we can see the dreaming pattern. Sorry, the neural activity of the dreaming in the healthy people. So we can compare the brain activity patterns, and we can check the whether the patients have dream or not. Likely that like us or something. And also I have a question, and I'm wondering the relationship between the level of consciousness and the sleep stage or something. I think that when people have a dream, the level of consciousness is high, more high than the non-dreaming stage. But how about the like REM sleep and N1, N2, N3 or something? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think it is quite, I think it is still unknown. So what are the specific EEG signatures of dreaming? Because I think for a long time people were assuming, or the generally accepted understanding was that dreaming happens in the REM sleep mostly, and then in the last, I don't know, 2 decades or even more, there has been an increasing number of studies showing that dream reports are actually so people can record dreams and seem to be dreaming at least sometimes, in some cases in non-REM sleep as well. And again, this kind of raises this issue of if people have dreams, what if they have them but they can't recall them when they are awakened, or when people wake people up during sleep stage, for example in non-REM sleep, do they remember their dream before that and just like that's the last thing that they remember, so they report it, or how these different EEG patterns relate to dreaming and dream reports. I think it's definitely there's a lot to do there.
And how about the brain network activity for something high. So I want to mean that how about the integrated information? The REM swimming integrated information is high, more than the like N3 or something, or the sleeping stage is the same with the instant or something. What do you think about that?
So first, I think Tononi is, he proposed the theory, IIT, and also he's a sleep researcher. So he has like his own very clear-cut ideas. So can be different from mine. But what I can say is that, yeah, clearly, while you are dreaming, the phi value should be high than non-dreaming sleep. But I'm not sure whether, let's say, the phi value is meaningfully high, while like people do not have dream or. So the kind of question is that while in N1 sleep stage, do you have like higher level of consciousness than like N3 sleep stage? That's the question. If it's the true, then we can make a prediction based on IIT. But we do not know whether which sleep stage gives much higher level of consciousness. So I don't know what, or let's say we have some neural data from different stage, and we can apply just an IIT framework to these data. We can say that, oh, during this sleep stage, the fiber is bigger, so we can predict. This is just a prediction, so we can make a prediction saying that, oh, this sleep stage is gives a higher level of the phi value, and it implies that the level of consciousness is higher. That is just an prediction. And in another scenario, maybe the level of the big phi value is just the same between, let's say, N1 and N3, meaning that, oh, in this sleep stage, you're just non-conscious, zero level of consciousness. So basically the same as if you were dead or something like that.
In relation to that, can I just ask your opinion on whether REM sleep or dreaming specifically? So should there be a difference between dreaming and wakefulness in phi? Because like technically you have subjective experience in both cases.
Yeah, again, it's very difficult to make a prediction, because even we have subjective experiences, we are not sure whether which, let's say, awake is more higher in terms of level of consciousness than dreaming state. I don't know. If that's the case, then the fiber is higher in the wakeful state. But yeah, I'm not sure. And this is just from my memory, and I might be wrong, but Now mentioned something about this somewhere, I think. And he used, some category theories idea, and then saying that, some, stage of, sleep or state of the level of consciousness are just not, comparable. We can't compare these, different levels as, level of consciousness. Yeah, I think, he definitely meant, I'm sure that he mentioned that kind of idea somewhere in his paper. So he also has, he has another or different idea, but that's what I can say. Or I'm not sure because I don't know. First of all, I'm not sure how we can say that, oh, now I have more higher level of consciousness than the other. Or how can we say that? That's my question. Or can we say that? That's a bit difficult to answer, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to how, what is your theory of consciousness, how you define it. I think there is a completely reasonable or acceptable way to define consciousness as a either or, like a binary state. But I can also see that maybe in other in another context or in the search for the answers of other questions, it may make more sense to define consciousness as this with levels or changing or so with this more finely so as with more resolution, so to say. But I don't know if either of them is right or but I think that's a very interesting question, and I think eventually consciousness researchers need to decide or need to answer these questions. We'll see. I'm hoping we will be around when it happens.
So you have already asked your questions, everything.
Okay, so I have the other questions. Okay, so and one question is that what is the brain area or brain system gates the change of the sleeping stage? In other words, as previous research, previous paper we discussed, the anterior insula is the gating point of the default mode network and the dorsal attention network. So, and now how to change the sleeping stage, and is there important area or important biological changes, and is there finding or it was found or it is still unclear?
So you are saying that is there any biological mechanism that switch wakeful stage to sleep stage and sleep stage to wakeful stage, right?
I think they mention a couple of brain regions. I think they mention the suprachias. I'm sorry, I will pronounce this, suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is related to circadian rhythm. And they also mentioned regions in the brainstem. But I don't know if that's more related to just, yeah, and they also mentioned that potentially the fact that the thalamus and the thalamocortical communication is intact, that might also be related to the presence of these sleep patterns like slow waves or spindles. But I don't know if, yeah, I don't exactly know what are the brain regions responsible for this, or if it's, you know, completely known actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so related to Roji's question, I'm not sure whether this paper mentions or this is just a review paper, so it should not be necessary like to be like specific, but they did not mention which region or which brain area is damaged for different subject, and they just, you know, treat the same category subject as the same. Let's say minimally conscious state subject as just a minimally conscious subject. But I'm not. Yeah, I was wondering whether there are some, you know, differences between or in the area of brain damage, because it can indicate, oh, this area is very important for recover or something like that, or, you know, that kind of region is necessary to generate, let's say, spindles, things like that. So I was just curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think it's important to point out that so all of these sleep patterns and EEG in general has some quite significant inter-individual variability. So yeah, for some people, for example, yeah, so it's somewhat different in everyone. And then if you don't have a comparable sleep recording from someone before an accident or before their brain damage occur, I think it's quite difficult to tell whether it's the individual variability or variation or it's the brain damage, like at least in some cases. But yeah, if you guys have, or is it okay if I ask I have one question. So I was wondering, and this is more of a bit of a out there question, but so from this paper, I came to the, well, no, I came to the conclusion, or I got this impression that sleep seems to be, and specifically the like these changes, so sleep-wake cycle seems to be very important for consciousness or healthy or normal conscious functioning. And I think that kind of raises an important question, whether artificial consciousness will require a similar thing like sleep. Like in general, you know, I think with engineering, we see that some of the most efficient engineering solutions are not based on how it's done by nature or by evolution. So I can easily imagine that maybe we will be able to create a system that doesn't need sleep or a sleep-like activity, and still may be able to produce some kind of conscious state, or we'll see. I'm hoping. But yeah, I think it's quite interesting. Like, yeah, I can also imagine that maybe sleep, or maybe some kind of change in the information structure is quite important for consciousness. I don't know if IIT can accommodate this, or how can it accommodate this, and also in just general, yeah, if this will be a crucial question, but I was definitely wondering about this.
So basically, your question is whether sleep is necessary for consciousness, right? So first, the reason I think that the reason why you mentioned is that in this paper, the proper sleep cycle is important for recovering. Yeah. So my question. So first of all, I don't know, or I don't think IIT gives some explanation whether sleep is necessary for consciousness or not. What it can say is that, in this, if some system take this activation pattern with this network, this can have conscious experiences at this moment, and that's what IIT can say. So this is again just my opinion, but I don't think IIT can explain whether sleep is necessary for conscious subjective experiences. And that's kind of my short answer. And in relation to your question, I have another question. So what is sleep for? Why do we need sleep? And my understanding is that sleep is necessary for maintenance of body or something like that. So in a sense, for example, if you shut down your computer, if you just luckily shut down it will hurt the computer. So you need to shut down the computer in a proper way. That's kind of related to human sleep. So proper process to rest, or so in that case, the sleep is for resting, and this is constraint or limitation from biological perspective. I don't know what it means by that, but just okay, then my question is that, is there any animals who do not require sleep? So the reason why I asked this question is that if there is such kind of animals, then we can start asking answering what is the role of sleeping. And then at the same time, if we can investigate their subjective experiences, not sure how we can do it, but if we can do it, then we can say that sleep is necessary for consciousness or something like that. So what is do you know any other like animals?
So I'm not sure, but I seem to recall that like actually there's very like almost you can find sleep-like behavior in like even very small organisms, because again it's like at that point it becomes how do you define sleep, but then if you just define it as a change in activity, then you can find sleep-like behavior in, I think, up to I don't know, single cell organisms or so. But again, I'm not an expert in this, but I seem to recall that. I mean, at least in many insects, like in fruit flies, definitely we have sleep. So I think it's quite general.
I use the term 3, but it's very, I understand, difficult to define, because we can say that all plants can also sleep because they behave differently during daytime and night, and that can be considered as like sleep. So yeah, that's, I don't know.
Yeah, so it is interesting question point. And yes, I think the merits the sleep is related to the restructurization of the memory or brain network or something. So it is like to the upgrade of the software or PC and something. I think so. Reconstructed or restart is important for us, like the biological limitation. And also, I think the opposite pattern, sorry, I don't know the English word, hibernate or long time sleep, like the bear or something, animals sleep during long time, like the winter. It is, I think it is related to the sleep, or sleep is important for consciousness or for what's life or something.
Or maybe, I don't know, like maybe the definition of sleep can be like the different phase or different way of behaving and constrained by the environment. So as long as you live in the earth, we have, like daytime and nighttime. So animals, behave differently between these different, So I'm not sure whether we can, define sleep, but okay, then like we have some sleep, and we can also mention or infer sleep of other animals, and how we can infer, what is the evidence of that? So the same like cycle, or proper organized sleep wake cycles, or again some features of sleep, let's say against spindles, or don't know, like slow wave, or what is the evidence?
So is your question whether in different animal species we have like similar electrophysiological patterns of sleep?
Yeah, so, okay, so my question is kind of, yeah, different species, different animals can have different types of, sleeps, but some species can have, or I guess have some, or very similar sleep to humans, and how we can, define, or they have very similar sleep or not? Is it based on features, or is it based on like some brain regions or their behaviors, or what's, yeah.
Again, I don't know the details, but I seem to remember that at least, for example, rodents and like rats and mice, they have similar kind of slowing of the EEG or the electric activity, and this larger synchronized activity, even if it's not exactly in the same hertz range or like exactly the same as in humans, but I think that they also have some kind of slow wave like activity. I don't know any more details other than this, but I think it's at least within mammals with somewhat similar brain anatomies, that there are similar processes that we can compare and like that are somewhat comparable to humans.
So I forgot why we studying about what is sleep, but what was that? I think it's from Aniko's question, but I'm not sure whether I answered your question or not. So did I answer to your question?
Yeah, I guess it was more like a just bringing up an idea, because obviously we cannot answer this question whether sleep is necessary for consciousness or not. And although it seems that it seems to correlate with biological consciousness, yeah, artificial consciousness is a completely different thing. But yeah, I am very interested to see. I think, the brain ability to reorganize, or kind of to kind of shut down a bit, or so to say, like go into a completely different state of information processing. It's quite powerful, and yeah, I mean, I can really imagine how we would maintain yeah, similar level. Like obviously we know that sleep deprivation leads to dying and like the complete destruction of cognitive functions fairly quickly. But then now I remember that, for example, sea mammals, so like dolphins and whales, they have this ability to like, so only half of their hemisphere, half of their brain is in sleep at one time, which is again quite fascinating. I would like to have that skill.
That's so interesting. And by the way, if we don't have a sleep, we can aware of our consciousness.
Yeah, I was going to ask exactly the same question. So without, some differences in the level of consciousness, we can't say anything about, or we can't notice, there is some level of consciousness or that kind of concept. So in that sense, sleep is necessary for consciousness, for us to notice. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's very true. Yeah. And I guess in that way, it's quite interesting to think about, again, a couple of episodes ago, we talked about children and toddlers or babies, infants. And if they, how is their consciousness? And since they sleep so much, like mostly they sleep, again, I think it must mean that yeah, their conscious experience is quite different.
Yes, I agree. And in the baby, I think the REM sleep stage is so much more than the non-REM sleep. So REM sleep, non-REM sleep, non-REM sleep also are ordinary and a long time. So they have a lot of time to sleep. And in contrast, the elderly person, their sleep time is less than us, but I forget, but the REM sleep time is decreased. So total sleep time is decreased for them. So it is interesting. So the sleep stage or sleep structure, and if there is a relationship between the consciousness and the sleep structure, I think the difference is obvious. But I don't know. The baby have a dream. We can't ask them, but so they have the brain activity like they have or they have a dream because the brain activity pattern is the same as adults when they see the dream or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure about my memory from baby, but I'm sure that while I was in like a kindergarten or when I was in elementary school, I had some dreams. Sometimes it's very scary and sometimes it's very good, fancy one. So yeah. Or does anyone remember memory of you dreaming from baby period?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's again with this childhood amnesia that they just, like, people don't remember anything before roughly 3 years. Yeah, but I mean, I know that there are, so seemingly children dream more, or they are able to report more dreams, I think. Yeah, but again, I think it's also quite interesting to imagine what like really infants or very young babies would, like, how would their dream be like? I mean, obviously they don't have that clear vision, maybe. Yeah, so like so much of their brain is still in development. So I mean, obviously I would assume that if they dream, it's not, like the structures and narrative of similar to like adult dreams or even young children's dream. Again, is it possible to dream if you don't have a clear self-consciousness. Like, yeah, maybe for them it's not like they dream about something, but just there are visual experiences or some kind of like sensory experiences when they are awake, and then there are sensory experiences when they sleep. But I think this would be very interesting to know if they dream or not, or how they what do they dream of.
Yeah. Now I remember that. Well, this is not from my like baby memory, but this is from my, I don't know, kindergarten or elementary school dreaming experience. But yeah, at that time I was a fan of collecting beetles, and then one day in front of my house I saw a very, very big beetle, which is not should not live in Japan, or I think from Amazon or somewhere. And then I told my mom to say, oh, I found that beetle or something. And then I still remember that is, or in that sense, it can be, or I think it should be like just a dream, but I couldn't distinguish the dream experience and, just real life experience. So, for like young kids, sometimes they just mix these, subjective experiences and in that sense, just dreaming and just real life, conscious subjective experiences, same or something like that. Not sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I think even for adults, or sometimes I have this experience that I dream something, because I have very mundane and boring dreams about like waiting for reviews and responses from, like, it's very sad, really, that these are my dreams. But but sometimes I have this feeling of like, have I dreamt this, or have I actually done this still as an adult? And I think that kind of relates to this, this ability of so-called reality monitoring. So whether you can identify if a sensory input come from your actual sensory experience, or if you imagined it. And that's I think a quite interesting skill, and definitely there are quite large individual variability. Also, for example, people with schizophrenia have a decreased ability in identifying the source of mental concepts or images. So again, I think that's a completely very, very fascinating topic.
Yeah. And now again, I remember that this is again, my mom told me that, but when I was young, I did a lot of sleepwalking or something, but I did not have, that kind of, memory, or just after, having sleep dreaming, my mom, after, in the morning, my mom told me like, oh, what happened with you? You were like walking, but I did not, have any memory of that. So, but I hope like now I do not, or I don't do that kind of, sleepwalking or stuff, hopefully. So I'm sure that, there's some difference between, or difference in, age for sleeping. Maybe can be some difference in subjective, experiences as well. So do you have any questions? Because I think we've already talked roughly about 1 hour. If not, maybe we can finish the discussion. Good?
Okay.
Okay, then see you.
See you. Thank you.